It's my pleasure today to interview for the archives of the American Association of Neurological Surgeons an old and dear friend, Dr. Tony Marques. Dr. Marques is the senior neurosurgeon in Portugal. He was trained in part by Walter Dandy at the Johns Hopkins Hospital. I first met Tony in a very unusual way. I was sitting on a bus in Edinburgh waiting to go to the Royal College of Surgeons, where I was attending a meeting of head injury. A big man came and sat down beside me and said, "Dr. Clark, you and I share a unique circumstance in neurosurgery." And I looked at him rather startled, and he said, "We both had the privilege of taking care of the presidents of our country. My name is Tony Marques." That was the beginning of a long friendship. Tony, welcome to Dallas. We're delighted you're here. It's my pleasure to ask you a few questions about your life in neurosurgery. I know that you've been very active in the European Association, the World Federation. You've been a member of this association since 1966. You always come, which is unique among the corresponding members. Tell us, if you will, Tony, how you got in neurosurgery. What started you in it?
Well, by a bad chance. I suppose when I was young, when I was in high school, my idea is becoming diplomat. But after, I lived with my father and my mother, and my sister died, and I was alone, and I don't leave my father, neither my mother. I decided to stay at home, and decided to be a doctor as my father. And it's very interesting because until 36, I was devoted to internal medicine and supposed to have a university career in medicine. But at this time they invited me to come to pass the tests in the civil hospital of Porto in Lisbon, where don't exist nothing for neither neurosurgery, neither neurotraumatology. And I suppose maybe it was a good chance. And I start in 1940, finish my internship, and I will not be back on these meetings. It's become I am no more alive. I will be here until the last end. And my American experience is curious too. I came here in 1943 during the war. It was difficult for a civilian, a young fellow, to come to the United States. And I had to have my luggage ready during 7 months. And Lisbon was full of Gestapo people.
Yes.
And the place where the Pan American is taking care of the passengers have 3 small monkeys. And when the 3 small monkeys look at the same side, it was a plane. And each day I went there during 7 months. And one day it was my plane.
It was your plane.
I arrived in the States, 8 days flying time between Lisbon and New York. 8 days.
Gee.
The Southway was during the winter. And I arrived in New York and I said, "This is the safest way to travel." I was staying at the Commodore Hotel, and 3 days later, I went to my hotel and bought the newspaper on the lift. And the boy, was a boy there, asked me, "What your floor?" And I say, when I arrived there, I said to the boy, "Let's go down." He said, "Maybe this man is crazy." And I arrived to the port and say, "Where is a bar?" Next bar, I went there and asked, "Give me a double straight." And they give me, and he says, "Now, another double straight." On the newspaper, the Yankee Clipper, my plane crashed in Lisbon, 50 people died.
Oh, that's
the history.
The next time, yes.
And I arrived in New York. I was very good friend with Dr. Philip Wilson, orthopedic professor in Columbia University.
Yes.
And I arrived here, supported by, helped by the Rockefeller Foundation and My plan was going to Boston to work with Dr. Donald Monroe at the Boston City.
Yes, Dr. Don Monroe.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's very funny because Dr. Wilson says, no, you go directly to Baltimore, John Hopkins, Dr. Dandy. And this way I arrived in Austin 7.
I think he gave you some good advice. How was the Hopkins in those days, in the 40s?
Was a fantastic. This couldn't exist anymore. Nothing like that. They have some what I could say, some rules. Rules were always the same people doing the same thing with same instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And the speed was fantastic. 6 operations a day.
My
6 operations a day.
That's quite a surgical list.
And with certain rules. Dr. Dandy never opened, neither closed.
Mm.
He just do the main part, and after Ugo Rizzoli, Franco Tenasek, and myself and others, we stayed hours for
Right.
he stopped completely bleeding. He was extremely careful.
Right.
But the only thing I could say is the department was ruled, I could say, by terror.
By terror.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes. Always, when I arrive there, we just rest between operations. We have just the time to smoke off a cigarette between operations. Not one cigarette is off. But after we have time, we have a resting room, something, and always is a student nurse at the window. And I understood why. She was there not doing nothing, just looking at the garden. And everybody relaxing, talking, and smoking and so. At a certain moment, the girl arrives and says, the old man is coming.
She was your spy.
In a second, everybody was. There was no cigarettes, nothing. Everybody very quiet. Discipline, fantastic. And I say, if the electric power went away, the operation could go on. It's always when the new intern, the interns they put them for the instruments, give Dr. Dandy a new instrument, he gets mad. He says, during years I am always this old one, this one. It's very interesting.
So you were there with Chambers and Hugo Rizzo?
No, Franco Tenasek was the resident. Franco Tenasek.
Franco Tenasek.
Hugo Rizzo was assistant resident. And the experience was fantastic.
You were with Dandy how long? A year?
1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
And then you went back to Lisbon.
I went back to Lisbon, but when I arrived in John Hopkins, Dr. Dandy said to me, you come from Portugal. I give you this book, Intracranial Aneurysms. I don't need angiography for nothing.
Really?
But when I left, he says, now I will change my mind. I will try the angiography.
For those of you who don't know, cerebral angiography was invented in Portugal by Moniz.
Will be 60 years next month, 27th of June, 27,
Right.
1927.
Yes.
60 years now.
You went back to Lisbon. I guess Moniz and Lima were alive and working.
Yeah,
and busy.
yes, very good friends of mine.
Yes.
We were very good friends all the time.
Were you
And
associated with them professionally?
No. We're just friends because they take care in the university hospital and I take care in the different hospital. And there, this is interesting because I had to get the support of many people around the world, even Americans. I succeed to have the first independent neurosurgical department in the Iberian Peninsula.
Really?
After a terrific war, authentic war, I get the support of Jefferson, Norman Dodd, and Paul Buscemani, who wrote me letters supporting my point of view. As you see how the things change, now in Portugal we have 8 neurosurgical independent departments, and the Spanish have 60 neurosurgical independent departments. The first one was in Lisbon, 1955.
1955. That's great. That's great. So, tell me, may I ask you, I don't know your family. How many children do you have?
I have, my family is an Iberian family. I have 2 boys and a girl.
Or either?
The oldest boy is Spanish.
Oh,
The girl is Portuguese. and the youngest boy Portuguese.
Ah.
The oldest boy is Spanish, married a Portuguese girl, and I have a grandson who is already a Spanish citizen.
Oh. And what can you tell us about, what was your favorite operation? What did you like to do best as a neurosurgeon? Did you have one? Or
Well, for me, since the beginning, when I arrived in these hospitals, where I saw they had injury cases for the youngest interns, you know, and everybody killed in a terrific way. I was very much attracted by the neurotraumatology. But doing all neurosurgery I could do at this time. I'm not interested in techniques, but neurotraumatology has been my love.
Oh, really?
I has been chairman of the World
Federation Committee on
12 years.
Yes.
12 years.
I was going to come to that in a moment. Have you seen the new series that there of books on neurotraumatology that Figaro is producing?
Yes,
it's
yes. I am editor of the first.
Yeah,
one of the editors of the first.
It's a super series of books. I was very surprised to learn that Robert Figaro is the mayor of Marseille.
He's mayor of Marseille.
Yes.
And keeps being the director of neurosurgical department. I don't know where he had time for that.
I don't either, but that's great.
I will ask him Sunday, because Sunday is farewell party of Jambria in Brussels.
I know. I wish I were going.
I will go there, and Figaro will go there too.
Oh, yes.
And I will ask him how he handled these two.
Yes.
Being mayor in Marseille is quite difficult, because the political situation in France is too complicated.
A little complicated, yes. And you may not wish to talk about this, but when you took care of Mr. Salazar, he had a chronic subdural, is that right?
This is also, if you classify it as that, it's interesting history. I never met Mr. Salazar, never before. And besides that, he has a political doctor who is always very dangerous. Having a political doctor is the worst thing a politician could have. And he was staying in Estoril, close to Lisbon, living like a monk. He was a very modest man, and very honest man, and very difficult man too.
True.
And full of power. And he was sitting in a chair, very little chair, and the chair collapsed. He hit the head. He was 79, and the doctor don't take care.
Oh.
And the doctor rang me up on Wednesday, and it was Dr. Coelho, and he rang up to my home and says, "You want to speak with me?" But Coelhos have a lot of Coelhos in Lisbon, have more than Newton.
Like Jones.
And next day, he rang me up and says he was professor so and so, and he identified, and I contact him, and he says, "I want to see. You want to come to see a patient?" It's the first time this happens with me, with this doctor. I was surprised. And next day I ring him up and say, "Well, I am busy. I go to see my family in Sevilla. In my vacation time, I don't go." Come. This is nothing wrong, but I will like it if you come. And the Saturday, I arrived there, and he says, "You have a chauffeur?" "Yes." "Don't come with the chauffeur. Come alone." And I went to his house, and he has his car. And we put on the car, and he says, "Now we go to Estoril to see whom?" I say later. It was so mysterious. I was rather surprised. I arrived there. It was Mr. Salazar. He has a right hemiparesis, and he was very much trouble with behavior, very proper with the condition. He was very sleepy and so. And they explained to the doctor, we had to take care of him immediately. We bring him to Lisbon. We make EEG, and at this time he was 68. Not yet, Ausfield was not his discovery.
Ausfield was not out yet.
Not yet. And he says, no, why? Only at the night. and I spent 6 hours with the patient almost in coma because the doctor decided I could only come by night because they are interested, nobody knows he was sick. And when I succeeded to bring him to Lisbon, only one minister now, Salazar was sick. He don't say a word to nobody. It was a complete secret. And after he was 79, he has a right Perez's. He don't remember when he graduated. He was professor of economy in Coimbra. He don't remember anymore where he graduated. It was completely, almost a very mild coma. And they went to the hospital, and I say, well, he has his left carotid. We don't find pulse in the left carotid. We don't have Doppler at this time yet.
Really?
It was difficult. And maybe he has, what could be, as a vascular accident. And if he had a subdural, and if he died, and they make him post-mortem, I will be shot at least.
Yeah, you've been shot if you missed the diagnosis.
Well, and I say, well, the only thing is just after the government came and asked for invited people for foreign countries. Some people from England to come. I say, you come for the people from England, and I went away because I am not here to see these men. 79, he fall in a deep coma. Nobody will wake up. And after they set my opinion, and I spent 2 hours in front of the room when he was, because nobody was able to say he will be operated under local, because anesthetist was afraid with this man. He was an extremely weak man.
Really?
2 hours. At the end I said to the President of the Republic, nobody is able to go there. No. If nobody go, I go. I put nurses out, and I say to Mr. Salazar, we need to do a small surgery, and the important thing, you have to shave your head. And they look at me and says, if it's necessary, do it. And the other subdural, and it was perfectly all right during 10 days, walking like we are talking here.
Right.
And on 10th day, he has a discussion with his doctor. And the doctor explained what was the operation. As opened this skull, and put tubes on his brain, and aspirated a lot of blood, and he got very much anxious, and at a certain moment, he fall. And one thing is important. This man was a very religious man. And when I asked him, he has been to be operated, he don't ask for a priest, he don't ask nothing. Very calm. He was a god. But when he had the discussion, he get a very hard pain on his head. He put the hand on his head. The nurses told me I lived in a room at his side 3 months and a half. And when I arrived there, he was in coma already. They put the hand on his head and said, "Ay, Jesus." He was a man again. He recuperated his normal personality. He was a human being at this moment, no more a god. Before that, he was a god. Now he was. And in 5 minutes, bilateral Babansky signs, pressure up. He has vomited, aspirated vomit, pupil dilated, and he died 1 year and a half later.
1 year and a half later.
And he was voting, talking, and it was a very difficult condition. The President of the Republic asked me, and I invited Professor Houston Merritt, who has been seeing him before, to come to Lisbon just to say, he's all right, but he's no more a political. And this was the end.
That's interesting. As you know, Dr. Merritt was my professor of neurology. And when President Eisenhower had his stroke, Dr. Merritt was called to see him in consultation. And he said that he thought perhaps that the president should have an angiogram. And Dr. Marriott said, I never got ushered out of a room so quick in my life when I made that suggestion. That was the end of that right there.
We refused also to do angiography to Salazar on this moment.
Yeah.
Could be a lot of trouble now.
That could have been a lot of trouble. Yes, you bet. Tony, when did you retire?
I retired in Portugal at 70.
At 70.
In my birthday, 29 of May.
On
He
your
says,
birthday.
you are an old man, goodbye. I say this.
Did they have a ceremony when you retired?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. I bet a lot of people came from all over Europe for that.
They have 3 friends who came, I never forget, Luendijk and Vigouroux and Brière. They
Yes.
came more or less this time, and I was very grateful to them.
Very good time. So what are you doing now, besides
I
going?
work like a dog.
Now you have all this free time.
I am against TV. I refuse always to go to TV. But the day of my retirement, the people came. And I asked me, say something. I say, just three phrases.
Right.
The best way for a doctor to live is working. The best way for a doctor to become old is working. And the best way for a doctor to die is working.
So
That's
you-
all.
So you're still working, huh?
Still work. And after that, 7 years ago, he put me in Academy of Sciences. Elected me, remember. And they exploded. I am working like a dog. Yes.
I bet you're the only neurosurgeon in that crowd in the academy.
The academy, Egas Moniz has been president of the academy,
Yes.
and Almeida Lima has been president of the academy.
Oh, see. Very good.
And I am an advisor. I give only my advice. I keep in touch with the patients just for give an advice. I don't take care of patients.
You don't, but you do see consultations and say, yes,
In
this-
private,
yes.
they come with all the process complete, with all the CTs and everything, and all 10 opinions different. And they have been in England and are supposed to go to France and ask me what to do.
I see.
I take 2 hours and give it advice.
Give them advice. Very good. Thank you very much, Tony. It's been a pleasure.
It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you.
Thank you very much.
And the day I am not in the meeting,
Right. Thank you again.